I was thinking that today I wanted to talk about estrogen. First, uh, kind of looking at the chronology, we've got estrogen is quite high in puberty, right? And often puberty is a little bit more of an estrogen dominant state. Ironically, perimenopause is kind of like, I think of it as the bookends. You've got puberty and perimenopause. Often in perimenopause, you can have some estrogen dominance again, partially because the ovaries are like, oh, wait, here's some, wait, I don't know. But in perimenopause, the progesterone production starts to go down. So puberty, we've got higher estrogen, and then also during the childbearing years. So your 20s and 30s, your estrogen tends to be more on the higher end, and it tends to be well balanced by progesterone. So I've done another called just on progesterone. Often when there are symptoms that we're not very happy with, often where those symptoms are coming from isn't just that estrogen is high, but if the gap widens. So if estrogen can be normal, but progesterone can be low, you can have symptoms of estrogen dominance. Or if the hormone changes quickly. So often, for instance, with hormonally regulated migraines, often what's happening there is there's a quick shift in the estrogen, either up or down, and it can trigger a migraine response. And then as women go into the later chapters of perimenopause and into menopause, that's when estrogen drops and generally goes down, predominantly because the main place the estrogen is coming from is our ovaries. Now, that doesn't mean it's the only place it's coming from, right? So it doesn't mean that a woman in menopause has no estrogen. It just means it's much less. And now it's coming from more around the adrenals, the adipose tissue, the skin, other places. And there are 3 different estrogens. We have estradiol, estrone, and estriol. You don't necessarily need to know this, but just know that estriol is the estrogen of pregnancy, and estrone is the more dominant estrogen in menopause. So for those of you that are in the later chapters of perimenopause and menopause, the reason I bring this up and the way that I always remember it is estrone has O-N-E in it. One, estrone is an estrogen that's much more about single-mindedness, okay? Estradiol is the estrogen of the childbearing years, and that's the estrogen of multitasking, right? We've got lots of things going on. Maybe we're making babies, maybe we're working, we've got food on the stove, we're just juggling lots of different things, attracting different partners. And so that's an estradiol estrogen. And women, we've got that diffuse awareness, aware of all things at all times, existing in our minds, and able to be focused on so many different things at once. And what happens is beyond, say, age 45 for the average woman into the later chapter of perimenopause and into menopause, estrogen as a whole is going down, but it's also going more towards estrone. So women will often start becoming a little bit more single-minded, a little bit more unapologetic, a little bit more self-focused rather than caring for everybody else. We still are women and we're good at caring for everybody, but there's a new fierceness that comes with menopause. And that's an estrone piece. Estrogen isn't a bad thing. We want estrogen. Estrogen's protective with the bones. It can help maintain brain clarity, right? It's gonna be the hormone of fertility. We want to keep it there beyond menopause so that we're not suffering with vaginal dryness and vaginal pain and irritability and all of that. But then, the question is, well, how low is too low? And when do we talk about actually bringing in like a pharmaceutical bioidentical estrogen? Because what happens is, even though there's still estrogen beyond menopause, it does go down. And so as it goes down, the thing that women will struggle with beyond menopause. So remember, menopause, the definition of menopause is once you've gone 12 months with no bleed. That's the definition of menopause. You can get blood work done, you can get an ultrasound, but really it's once you've gone 12 months with no bleed, you're in menopause, okay? Now, what's happening there is your estrogen is going down. You're no longer ovulating. And so now also the progesterone goes down. And so women will have more bone loss. They'll have a little bit more brain fog, more irritability. Hot flashes are generally a byproduct of low estrogen. And then we have the vaginal wall thinning. So it becomes more thin, less spongy, more friable. Sometimes women with penetration, it will actually create little cuts and bleed. It's very painful. And the body doesn't produce as much vaginal lubrication. And then sometimes there are scenarios where adding in some bioidentical estrogen makes sense. And that's a very personalized thing. And so as we are having our conversations, it might be that conversation comes up. I would much prefer we try lots of other things first. But at the end of the day, the wild yam creams, the phytoestrogens, the DHEA, the topical hyaluronic acids and all of that, it might be that some extra, just a little bit of bioidentical estrogen and progesterone really comes in handy, as long as it's bioidentical.